deep down in my heart that Ellen White, she was a true prophetess. She was way ahead of her time, and science is catching up with her. I believe that if God's children study the Bible well enough and live according to the principles in the Bible and the guidance from the spirit of prophecy, we would be a light to this world. She said that cancer, tumors, and all inflammatory diseases are largely caused by meat eating. So the prophetess in her time, that was I think since 1905, she acknowledged as to the light that God revealed to her that meat eating have increases or causes many cancers. She said, from the light, and guess what she says? God has given me the prevalence of cancer and tumors is largely due to gross living on dead flesh. That is Constant Diet and Food, page 388, paragraph 2. She continued by saying that the testimonies of the examiners is that very few animals are free from disease, and that the practice of eating largely of meat is contracting diseases of how many kinds? All kinds. And she named a few: cancer, tumors, scrofula, tuberculosis, and numbers of other like affection. Isn't that something? She said people are continually eating flesh that is filled with tuberculosis, cancer germs, or cancerous germs. Tuberculosis, cancer, and other fatal diseases, they are thus communicated, which means it passed on from one to the next. It passed on from the animal. And, you know, Ellen White made mention of cancerous germs that can cause cancer. And let us see what science is saying. It is showed, if you look at this diagram, it shows that you see the darker spot is the male and the lighter bar is the female. And in a more developed country, you could see the increase of cancer. Less developed countries, you could see that there is a decrease of cancer. Why is that? Because of the lifestyle of the people there. Not just eating from the animal kingdom, but the lifestyle itself of the people, the less exercise, eating more processed food, getting more sunlight, spend more time indoors, going to bed late because of the activities of those places. So science now is agreeing with this, with the prophetess. When we talk about cancer, what is cancer? The definition of cancer. In a simple way of putting it, the National Cancer Institute says that cancer is a disease in which some of the body cells grow uncontrollably and spread to other parts of the body. Cancer can start almost anywhere in the human body, which is made up of trillions of cells. Our bodies are made up of trillions of cells. And the only place that you don't get cancer is in your hair and just your nails, but you will still get it under your nails. There is not an organ in the body that you cannot develop cancer. Normally, human cells, they grow and they multiply. And the process is called cells division. To form new cells as the body needs them, which is how our Creator designed it. So when cells grow old or they become damaged, they die, and new cells takes their place. Sometimes this orderly process, it breaks down. It does not happen this way. And abnormal or damaged cells, they grow and multiply when they shouldn't. And these cells, they may form what we call tumors, and which are lumps of tissues. Now, tumors, they can be cancerous, or some tumors, they are non-cancerous. A non-cancerous tumor is called a benign tumor. So cancerous tumor, they spread into or invade nearby tissues, and they can travel to distant places in the body to form what we call new tumors. This process is called metastasis. So cancerous tumors, they may be called malignant tumors. And many cancers form solid tumors. But cancers of the blood, such as leukemia, they do not form um, tumors. So let's look at just quick recap. There are tumors in our body that are non-cancerous. And those non-cancerous tumors, they're called benign. So these are non-cancerous. But the cancerous tumor, they are called malignant. So when you hear the term malignant, then you know it is the C word applied to it. A benign tumor, they do not spread. A benign tumor, they do not invade nearby tissues. When removed, the benign tumors, they do not grow back. Whereas cancerous tumor, they do grow back. A benign tumor, they can sometimes be quite large. However, some can cause serious symptoms or some can even be life-threatening. Say, for example, you may have a non-cancerous tumor in the brain. Though it is non-cancerous, but it could still cost you your life. It could be life-threatening. So it depends on where the non-cancerous tumors are. But in most cases, a benign tumor is not life-threatening, right? Unlike cancer. The question is, how does cancer develop? Now, in a case of disease, it's not just knowing some of the herbs and supplements that one should take. The cure is always in the cause. If you don't understand the cause, it is hard and almost impossible for you to cure the disease. So it is good to understand what the disease that you are dealing with, the characteristic of it, that you could work intelligently in terms of helping. Let me just share this with you quickly. Someone called me and they have stage 4 cancer. That was yesterday or day before. Stage 4 cancer. And the cancer is so aggressive, I think the grade is grade 3, which means it's very aggressive. The oncologists find that this cancer, the characteristic of it, that is the receptor on the cancer, was very confusing. They could not give a proper diagnosis of the type of breast cancer it was. But the individual and other friends are trying to treat the cancer. But in treating the cancer, they don't even know what they're dealing with and not understanding cancer. And their plan is to combine or use a few herbs that they read on from the internet that would be helpful or that helps to fight cancer. And I said, this is the craziest idea because this will not work for cancer. And it's clearly that when one don't understand, just believe that I do this or that and this would work for me. Since listen, it's more complicated than this. And this is why I want to take my time and share with you some things that you could understand and know what to do to prevent. Cancer, how does cancer develop? Cancer is a genetic disease. That is, it is caused by changes. It is caused by changes to genes that control the way the cells function, especially how they grow and how the cells divide. Now, genetic change that causes cancer, it can happen because one of errors that occur as cancer divides. As the cancer as the cells divide. So as the cells divide, there are some errors that can occur that could cause a normal cells to make an abnormal cell, which can be a cancerous cell. Two, of damage to the DNA. Now that's our blueprint, our DNA. Our maker stamps us and make us unique. God is a master designer. No one can design like he does. He is a master plumber and a master electrician. all this wiring in our brain and, on all these blood vessels in our body, since God is awesome. So those changes of the DNA may caused by harmful substances in the environment, such as chemicals in tobacco. When one smokes tobacco, you know, also ultraviolet ray from the sun. Now, not just the sun itself, but what you apply to the skin when expose yourself directly to the sun can also cause some forms of skin cancer. And there are other causes, as one would inherit certain genes from their parents, and this could put one at a very high risk. So the body normally eliminates cells with damaged DNA before they turn into cancer or cancerous. But the body's ability to do so, it goes as we age. And this is the part of the reason why there is a higher risk of cancer late in life. And normally, sometimes you'll see that there is an increase of especially person in the 50s and older. So each person cancer has a unique combination of genetic changes. So as the cancer continues to grow, additional changes will occur, even within the same tumor. So different cells may have different genetic changes, and this happens. Let me just share with you some of the processes. Cancer can start almost anywhere in the human body, which is made of a trillion of cells. Normally, human cells, they grow and multiply through the process called cell division to form new cells as the body needs them. When the cells grow old, they become damaged. They die and new cells take their place. It is a process that is called mitosis. Now, if you looked at below just the diagram, you would see that there is the mother cells, and then you'll see that the DNA is replicating itself, it's divided. And then that cells will divide itself and then make another cell, the daughter cell. This is the process, and this is how our creator designed it, that new cells will take, um, cells will die and new cells will take over. So how are normal and cancer cells divide? We've looked at the process, but just look at the normal cells division. That the normal cells division, as the cells get damaged, the cells grow old, the cells commit suicide. It dies. It dies. That's what happened. A process that is called apoptosis. So the cells, it commits suicide, it dies. So damaged cells, it dies. It do not repair or to make another one. And this is the process of normal cells. So the body makes a normal cells, and the normal cells might make a damaged cell. It may not be a cancerous cell, but that damaged cells would not make another damaged cells. It commits suicide, it dies. And that's a good process. But in some cases, with the cancer cells, with a body making a cancer cell, the cancer cells does not die. The cancer cell replicate itself and it make another baby cancer cells. And the process continue until there is a cluster of cells that we call a tumor. Now, this process need to be understood. In generally, there are 3 stages of cancer. That does not, this, that does not, it does not mean that stage 4 and stage 5 of cancer does not exist. But as I go along, I will explain it to you. So in general, 3 stages of cancer, and those 3 stages, it is called the first stage of cancer, initiation stage, second stage promotion, and the 5th stage progression. If you look at this diagram, you'll see that the body makes a cancer cell, stage one. There is a small tumor in stage one, a small tumor. The tumor has grown, but it's still localized, which means it have not spread. That is stage two. Stage three simply means that the tumor has spread, it has begun spreading. Stage four and five is progression of stage three, which means the tumor or the cancer has spread much more. And that's what those stages mean. So once you have stage three of cancer, it means that the cancer has begun to spread. I like the way that Dr. T. Campbell put it and was using the lawn analogy of planting a seed in the soil. And what was said and what we need to understand that stage one of cancer is the stage that all of us goes through. It is a stage where as your body makes a cancer cell, and then that if your body makes a cancer cell, that we all have cancer. And this process is taking place in all of us on a day-to-day basis. So all of us, we could say all of us have cancer cells. The fact is we have cancer, but not a disease called cancer. Let me explain this to you. The chemical that do this, it is called carcinogen. These chemicals, they are most often byproduct of industrial processes. Although some small amount may be found in nature, that is called aflatoxin. Now listen, saints. If you looked at this diagram, this is a cell. When carcinogen enters the cell, this carcinogen is metabolized by an enzyme in your cell. And this causes the cell to produce a dangerous chemical. This chemical now goes to your cell's DNA and attack the cell's DNA, causes the DNA to be damaged. Now, the way the DNA shape, that rung of ladder, it has different gene like the tumor suppressing gene that could repair the damaged DNA. But as a result, if this process happens very often in our life, the possibility that this normal cells might end up replicating itself while the DNA is still damaged and can cause a normal cells to produce or to make a cancerous cell. There are many factors that could cause this. And some factors which I don't want to get into now, which I will mention as we go along, that could cause the mutation of our cell's DNA. Now, just in recap, we're just going to look at the difference between benign tumor and a malignant tumor. Again, you would see that a benign tumor is not cancer, is not cancerous. The tumor cells grow only locally and they can spread by invading or metastasize. Then we look at, so that's a benign tumor, non-cancerous tumor. But look at to your right, you would see that the malignant tumor, that is a cancerous tumor. These cells invade nearby the neighboring tissues. They enter the blood vessels and they metastasize to different sites in the body. A cancer acts just like the devil. As a matter of fact, cancer is a devil. It's like a demonic thing. You know, once it gets to your body, the cancer is there to try to take over your body. Just like the devil, sin does that to us. You know, it does that. So what causes cancer? Let's look at some viruses or bacteria may cause cancer. There's some chemicals that causes cancer. Radiation can cause cancer, hereditary, diet, hormones. These are some of the factors, so some of the things that causes cancer. Some of the key things that you must look at. They increase what some of the lifestyle or non-communicable diseases that can increase your risk of cancer. And one, obesity. Obesity can cause almost any disease. And if we look within our population, and even in our churches, we'll see a lot of these things when, listen, saints, the church is crying because our members are very sick. I've had to bury, I had to come back to bury a close friend of mine through cancer. And since it's now one after the other, and one after it's just non-stop, you know, obesity can lead to diabetes, and this can increase your risk for liver and cancer of the pancreas. How this happens? Because with obesity and diabetes, because sometimes people think being a diabetic is just being a diabetic. Your risk for several types of cancer increases when you have those diseases or when you're overweight. It causes your body um, to produce much more insulin, and or also it causes your body, the sugar in your body to increase your blood sugar, your blood glucose, which is hypoglycemia. This causes high inflammation in the body. That could lead to several different types of cancer. So being overweight is not an option. It puts you at a very high risk. It's just a culture now, since our sisters have been watching a lot of African movies and have, adopting a thickness that is the African mentality. That's the time of slavery. It was the slave master that was thick, and the slave was slim. So as a result, now, you know, the it's a mentality. The thicker you are, the healthier you are. The moment you start trimming down, your own brothers and sisters will ask you a question. Do you have that person? Are you sick? Are you okay? But while you were overweight, that's when you were sick. It's a mindset of the mental slavery that we still have. But you ought not to live your life to please others. Live your life to please God and to glorify Him. What increase your risk or people risk of cancer? Some bacteria um, in the gut, especially like H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori. And this bacteria, remember Ellen White says that germs, huh? you know, some cancerous germs. Now, this is a cancerous germ. If this is not cared for, it could cause cancer of the stomach. Or the viruses like HPV, human papilloma virus, and that the man can carry it on his penis, which could cause cancer of his penis. The woman could carry it in a vagina, and one can transfer it to the other. Now let's tell young people, before you get married, if you have been preserving yourself, make sure you and your partner go and do a general together and go and get your test result together. Because then you know what you're getting into. Someone may have done it once and have caught all of those things and can pass it on to you. And that's why you need to be mindful of that. You may have been preserving yourself, but your partner may have been exposed. So you need to do this check to preserve yourself. Again, it could lead to cancer of the anus, you know, and that's why, homosexual is bad. It's it is an abomination. Cancer of the mouth and the throat, because this virus is if it's in the throat, it can cause cancer in the mouth and also cancer in the throat. I'm not saying all cancer of the mouth and the throat is as a result of it, but it can lead to that. So one have to be careful where the mouth goes. Now, quickly, we look at tumor antigen. An antigen, it is a foreign substance that recognized and targeted for destruction by the body immune system. There is a war that is going on within us. All what's happening in the world is happening within us. Antigens, they are found on the surface of all cells. But normally, a person's immune system, it does not react to his own cells. So when cells become cancerous, new antigens, unfamiliar to the immune system, appear on the cell surface. This is pictured this way. You look at those two cells, the one to your left is a normal cell. And you could see the surface antigen, which is in blue. That is why dress reform is critical and important. You know, the children of Israel, they had blue on the border of the border of their garment. God's children are to dress in a way that is modest, modesty. God's children need to be recognized and seen different. There is a uniform. The Muslim, the Rastafarian, and others, the Hindus, they're not ashamed. Why would Seventh-day Adventists adopt what that is worldly and that is a reproach to God, exposing the extremity of the female and including the male? So the cancer, the normal cells in our body, they have uniform. But then again, the cancerous cells, the uniform change. You could see that there are new antigens on them. And that is where it's now being recognized by our immune system. May regard those new antigens called tumor antigens as foreign and may destroy them. However, even as a fully functioning immune system, research shows us, they cannot destroy all the cancer cells. So the fact remains, saints, is that if the Cayman Island is in war with another country, the Cayman Island, every country, the soldiers have different uniform. So if the uniform is the same, you're not going to attack your own. But if the uniform is different, you know that is an enemy. And that is what God's people must be recognized. Wherever we go, the way we speak, the way we dress, one must see modesty and Christ in us. Now, there is a war going on within us. There is an army also in us. And that army is our immune system. Just many persons in thinking of cancer or disease, the first thing they jump into, the herbs that will help to fight the disease. My brothers and sisters, the last thing that I teach is herbs. God have given us the true remedies. Our immune system, and I will share them with you, or you would have known because I heard the sister did mention them. The army within us, the war that is happening in the world with Israel and the Palestine, with Russia and Ukraine, with America and the rest of the world. I tell you something, there is a war. Our body that is happening within us, our body is a world of its own. And I could tell you something, you know, you ask an atheist how these things are happening, and they can't answer. There must be a designer, and God is that master designer. The army within us, our immune system. And this is how you will understand what can you do when you don't even know about the herbs to start preventing and help your body to fight not just cancer but diseases. The immune system, the army. If your army is retired, they're slow, they're sluggish, then any disease will take over you. I will mention a few of those soldiers. And one of them is the phagocyte. What name did I say? Phagocytes. The phagocytes, they are cells that protect the body. And what they do, they ingest harmful foreign particles, bacteria, and also dead or dying cells. They are essential for fighting infection and for subsequent immunity. The phagocytes, they are like the garbage collectors. These guys, they pass and they clean up the mess in our body. All those infect bacteria that invade our body. All those cells that are dying that would cause toxic in the system. They gobble them and they get rid of it. Isn't that something? So there is something in us. And every time I remember the phagocytes, and I see the garbage collectors, I appreciate them even more because they are important to our community. You know, sometimes we frown out the garbage truck and the garbage guys, but I tell you, their job is so important for us. Had it not been for them, we would have been so sick and our community would have been in a mess. We need to appreciate them. I was watching a documentary, and you know, this little white girl waited for when they pass, and every time they pass, she have something for them, either some cookies or a glass of juice. And I said, man, God be praised for her ministry by understanding and appreciating them at the work that they're doing. Then we have the lymphocytes. What word did I say? Lymphocytes. These makes up our white blood cells, the immune system. The lymphocytes, they are cells that, you know, circulate in your body that are part of the immune system. And there are two types of lymphocytes. And then we have the T and the B lymphocytes. B cells, they produce antibodies molecule that can latch on and destroy invading viruses or bacteria in the body. So the lymphocytes, they does that, and they are also important. So these are some of the soldiers. But I want to introduce you to one of my favorites. And the name speaks for itself. His name is called the NK cells, the natural killer cells. You see, they are the natural killer cells in our body. They are like the guardsmen. They are like snipers. They call to protect the body from unwanted intruders. I tell you something, since listen, there is a war going on within us, but there is an army in us. And while there is a war going on, a spiritual war for our mind, this army that God has given us, the captain of this army is Jesus himself, and the battle has been won. And there is not a disease that can come across that God cannot heal. And I want to give you hope. In spite of the fear for that C word, there is hope in Jesus. So if they meet the natural killer cells, if they meet an enemy soldiers, now look at how those guys operate. Can you see that with me? They are licensed to kill. Where there is hope, optimism, laughter, the natural killer cells activity increased by 50%. I wish you heard me because you would have said amen. You see, what I'm saying to you, those snipers in our body, those guardmen, the security guys that protect us from harmful enemies, from bacteria, viruses, cancers, those guys, the activity increases when you have hope. Hallelujah. When you laugh, just imagine when you laugh, if you could just put a smile on your face and just laugh, just for 1 minute, their activity, they will kill more cancer cells, or the activity for killing or destroying those cancer cells increases by 50%. I read this and I said, listen, there is not a day gone by I don't find a way. I have become a comedian in some way, trying to make people laugh, because when I laugh, I know what is happening within me. And that is why God's children cannot be frowning. We must have hope. There must be laughter. There must be optimism. Each natural killer cells, they become more viral. They are more active in destroying the enemy. When they take, and every time you go to the shower, when this hot shower, this hot water sprayed on your chest, it revives them. When this cool water is sprayed on your chest on the early morning, it revives the natural killer cells and increase the activities. It mobilizes them, you know, to kill more cancer cells. Can you imagine? I'll be right with you. They'd imagine it from the sides of the blood vessels, and they get into the mainstream, where they will bump up against enemy soldiers. When you breathe and take that deep breath and you hold it for 20 seconds and you release, and you could do this early morning as often as you please. When you do this, guess what? This deep breathing, it also reintroduces, imagine it, natural killer cells into circulation. It gets them out from the sideline back into action, thus increasing surveillance against cancer cells, bacteria, and viruses. When you sit properly, we're talking about good posture. Since listen, it's not just about the herbs and the supplement. There are basic things we could do. You don't have to buy in a bottle that can help your body to fight diseases. Just the posture of the way that you sit, the way that you stand, it helps to facilitate the activity of those soldiers in our body. Simple things we could do. Now, if you disregard all of these things, no matter what herbs that you take and supplement, this must be included. And these are things you could do even right now while you're in church or at home. The natural killer cells or the NK cells, they are part of the innate immunity, and they do not have antigen-specific receptors present on the surface. They play a major role in eliminating tumor cells and infected cells. They distinguish the normal cells from the infected or cancerous cells by a process that is called MHC. Now, you could try to pronounce it. I put it there. It is called a major histocompatibility complex. You could just remember it as MHC. This is the process that takes place. Now, those guys, in simple terms, they don't wear uniform. Every soldier in the body has their own uniform. Those guys are like snipers. They don't wear uniform. They disguise with the environment. And when least expected, those cancerous cells, they will bump into them. The aim, let me just show you this, how this happened. This is so exciting. This is happening to you right now as you're sitting there, or if you stand there. The natural killer cells, now these cells in the center, you could see the receptors on it are different. The antigen is different. The uniform is different. And the natural killer cells in our body, the immune system, they observe and realize that this is a foreigner. This is an enemy soldier. So they encircle the enemy and they're going to examine to see, hey, what are you doing here? And realize this guy is deadly. And those guys, what they did, they inject into it. Now, let me show you how this is taking place. They drill into the cancer cells. They drill and they releases some type of protein in the porphyrin. And then they move back. And guess what, since as they move back, boom, it's like a missile. The cancer cells is explode, dead. Isn't that something? This is amazing. God is a master designer. Since listen, there is a mess in our body when the cancer cells is destroyed. It causes toxic in the body. But who do you think of? We think of those guys, the garbage collectors now come into, they come into practice now. The phagocytes, they come and they gobble up the mess, these damaged cells or the dying cells, and get it out of the system. It's amazing. Overweight, we've looked at that, and cancer, it causes significant problem, which causes, and some of the problems that it causes, which I will just skip this, it just leads to one that is overweight. It leads to inflammation, high inflammation in the system, and the inflammation is the cause of cancer. Now, I have a new presentation on cancer that is dealing differently. I've never presented it from the type of cancer. We cannot even treat cancer the way that we treated it before, since after COVID vaccine, as to the type of cancer, the aggression of cancer that we see now based on the spike protein. And this is supported by what have been observed, and we'll know more about it as time goes by because the research is still early stage. But then scientists are observing a new trend of cancer these days, which is more aggressive than ever before. Now, this is it says. One cancer cells, let me see my time. Okay. Did somebody tell me how much time do I have left so I can know how to wrap up?
You can go until about 4, 5. You have what now? 6 o'clock? Say 6:20.
Okay, very well. So this is a, let's look at cancer tumor. If you have forgotten all that I've said, 2 points I want you to take away with. For one point, remember the immune system and what you could do. By just laughing, you are fighting cancer. By sitting with a proper posture, by being optimistic, by having hope, you are fighting cancer. You are already fighting cancer. These are extremely important. This one cancer cell in a slow growing cancer, one cancer cell in a slow growing cancer may replicate itself every 100 days. A cancer that is aggressive, it might be every 30, every 35 days or less. It depends. But the slow growing cancer. So let's look at the slow growing cancer, for instance. Every 100 days, 100 days, you have 2 cancer cells. In about 5 years, you would have 1 million cancer cells. That is about 1 millimeter in diameter. 1 million cancer cells is the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. That is cannot be clinically detected. It simply means you have had cancer for 5 years, unaware. With a slow growing cancer, that million cancer cell may replicate itself to a billion cancer cells. It might take about 4 to another 5 years. A billion cancer cells is 1 centimeter in diameter. That is about the size of a grain of lentils, a grain of rice. That is when the cancer is clinically detected. And that's when they call it stage 1. Let me explain this to you. Stage 1 of cancer is not when your body it's when you are diagnosed with stage 1 of cancer. It's not when your body make the one cancer cell. It's simply the first stage where the cancer can be clinically detected. That is what they call stage 1, which simply means you have been living with cancer, that's a slow growing cancer, for the past 10 years. Now listen, you've been eating, sleeping well, doing everything well, unaware that you have cancer. And that's why I recommended that all of us should live like we have cancer, because we all have cancer cells within us. We must breathe, sit, eat like we have cancer so our body could fight cancer for us. That is what we call prevention. We have cancer, but not a disease that is called cancer, which means it may never develop to that disease called cancer. What really kills the individual is hope. When the individual go to the physician now, they know that they did a biopsy and the result come back that you are positive. It is cancer. That's the time you kind of slip, you don't eat, you start worrying and you start losing weight. Your immune system is suppressed and the cancer now starts to replicate itself more quickly because of fear. So it's not really the cancer that is killing you, it is fear that is killing you. Number 2, as your physician start explaining to you treatment and surgery and your regular appointment, that fear increased and anxiety kicked in days before your appointment. As a result, you spend sleepless nights or you wake up during the night thinking, worrying. And those long appointments may cause some serious problem because guess what? You worry so much, you worry weeks before the date comes. And that's why I tell people, take it by stride, one day at a time. Then number 2, you start thinking of person who've done treatment and the percentage you know that live and the percentage that do not believe. And that put you to a place where now you're really afraid. It is that fear that will cripple you. So I just want you to understand that this, we need to have different mindsets. And when we talk about faith in Christ, it means that when you have faith and you cast your cares upon him, just let go and let God take control. Now, easier said than done. But when you have laid your burden upon him, don't carry those burdens. Leave it up to God. My first part in working with individual with terminal condition, a condition that is terminal, is to get them to the point where they're no longer scared of death. They have completely submit and surrender all. And that body is no longer about them, it belongs to God. And even if death were to come, they're not afraid because they know in whom that they're going to rest. Once you have overcome that fear of death, then your body begin to respond differently. But once there is that fear within you, then there is a problem. So if I get to work with somebody who's a non-believer, my work with them is to get them to believe. Because unless you believe, it becomes very difficult. And even the believer can have that fear. And the enemy will plant the seeds of fear in you all the time. Now, fear is not from the Almighty God, it's from the enemy. There is hope, since there is hope for cancer. So if the right condition is not met, after growth starts, the new seedlings, they will become dormant. So the second stage, the first stage initiation, then we have promotion. Promotion is reversible. That stage of cancer, when you're diagnosed, and they tell you that you have stage 1 of cancer, that stage is reversible. Depending on whether the early cancer growth is given the right condition in which to grow. And that is where certain dietary factors become so important. So stage 1, stage 2 of cancer, it can be reversed, especially if it's not too an aggressive cancer, or if we take action early. Now, these dietary factors, they're called promoters. Promoters, they feed cancer growth. Other dietary factors, they're called anti-promoters. Anti-promoters, they slow cancer growth. Cancer growth, it flourishes when there are more promoters than anti-promoters. When anti-promoters prevail, cancer growth is slows or it stops. This is amazing. It simply means that can we look at what are those dietary factors that would feed cancer cells and cause cancer to grow, that is promoting cancer, and those dietary factors that could slow cancer growth or even reverse the cancer, stop the cancer from growing, period. That's amazing discovery. And listen, for this is a breast cancer, and you could see that there's a cancerous tumor in the breast. For the cancer to grow, just think of cancer as a seed that plants in the you put in the soil. The seed will remain dormant unless it gets the proper nutrients. What does the seed need to grow? It needs fresh air, sunlight, it needs water to grow. Cancer cells are similar. You see, the cancer cells cannot grow any bigger than the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. Without nutrients and oxygen, it will die, period. Now, that's where another process comes in. So cancer cells itself, so these are the food. That's where the cancer cells on its own, let me not go ahead of my time. Let me just share this with you. These are some of the promoters, some of the foods and lifestyle that promote cancer cells, that cause cancer to grow and flourishes. Milk, dairy foods, processed meat, fried foods, barbecue meat, salt fish, smoking, Adventists don't smoke oil, as we use a lot of free oils. And those free oils, especially the unsaturated oil, when you fry it or heat it up, it can cause the oil to oxidize. Oxidation causes free radical. And free radical in this process can cause mutation of the cell's DNA, damages to the cell's DNA, can cause normal cell to produce a cancerous cell. That's another study by itself when we look at this thing. But These are the foods. I tell you something, as Seventh-day Adventists, we have a health reform message. Health reform is not just diet reform. Health reform is not eating flesh reform. Health reform is a whole message. It is a whole message. If as God's children, we embrace this message, the world would have looked onto us, even throughout this pandemic. It was an opportunity for God's people to shine. With the health reform message, I believe that even Donald Trump would have asked, there is a group of people who we see that is going through this pandemic, but they're not dying. And the disease, the virus is not affecting them like they're affecting the rest. Who are these people? And would want to investigate. They would have known us. You know, we were supposed to shine. But just like the, you know, children of Israel, we've turned our back on what God has given us. We embrace more of what the world has. And by rejecting what God has given us, that makes this movement, I don't call it a church or denomination, this is a movement. By, by making this movement peculiar and unique, one that is different from all the rest, the remnant people of God. Listen, saints, we neglect it. We fight against it. Even now, today, people are still fighting against health reform. Isn't that something? So stage two of cancer is called promotion. And promotion is newly formed cancer-prone cells. They are ready to grow and multiply until they become visible, detectable cancer. At this stage of cancer, it takes many years, as I explained. It is when the newly initiation clusters, they multiply and grow into larger and larger masses. Then a clinically visible tumor is formed. So the cancer cells, they will not grow unless the right condition is met. So stage two, stage three, the cancer cannot grow. The condition has to be met for the cancer to move from stage one to stage three. So stage three of cancer is called progression. That is when a bunch of advanced cancer cells, they progresses in the growth until they have done the final damage. A developing tumor may wander away from its initial site in the body and invade neighboring or distant tissues. That stage of cancer, what we call stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 of cancer, when the cancer takes on these deadly properties, it is considered malignant or uncontrollable. And when it's actually break away from its initial home and wanders, it is metastasizing. This final stage of cancer, the result usually it ends up in death. Now let me say this to you. I've seen person who they give 2 weeks to live. 2 weeks to live, send him home with an oxygen tank. And the doctor says, and some morphine and codeine. I said, there is nothing we could do. Let this person rest with the family and be at peace. And I remember family came and sat with me. It was 8 in the night. I knew this family well. They were very close to me. I was in bed, almost ready to go into bed, and I got this call, an emergency call, and they wanted to have a meeting with me at 8 o'clock in the night. And I said, man, can we wait for tomorrow? He said, no, Brother Taylor, we want to talk to you tonight, please. They just found out the loved one has, they gave, the doctor said a maximum of 2 weeks. And as we sat discussing, I said, I've never seen any case like this survive. And I remember the father-in-law looked at me in my eyes. And I said, listen, I can't give any guarantee. But I'll be honest with you, I've never seen any case like the cancer has spread from the neck to the toes of this individual. The doctor didn't know whether the brain had cancer red. And he said, Brother Taylor, we believe that God can use. And this family had more hope than that. It was 3 months, and I said, I'll do the best that I know how by God's grace. You know, saints, and I tell you, no man can take praise for it, but I'll tell you something. It was 3 months later, this young lady drove to my yard. I saw a tinted car came and she came and collect some cancer tonic. And when the window went down, it was tough. And this is a miracle that I can never forget. I used to give up, especially when the medical world gave up. But I believe today, this God taught me a lesson. Once there is breath in the individual, there is hope. And God says to me that you're not the healer, I am the healer. And there is hope in Jesus for every case, no matter how far it has gone. So, is cancer curable? Yes, it is. There are countless cases that I know that are today living, people who have had cancer and who are now 12 years, 13 years cancer free, or cured from cancer completely. No signs of cancer. You see, there is another something about the cancer that one need to understand. The cancer cells itself could grow to the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. There is a process that calls angiogenesis, which the cancer cells trick the body to make new blood vessels. That process is called angiogenesis. Just like the devil tricks us and make us believe that sin is good and is friendly and is sweet and nice, and the body is duped by the cancer cells and make more blood vessels to the cancer cells, so the cancer cells gets oxygen and nutrients from it. In learning this process, that if the blood supply is cut from the cancer cells, then the cancer cannot grow. That process or that treatment is called anti-angiogenesis, which means maybe another time we could look into those things. Why chemotherapy most time, or 95% of the time, end up not being successful long term? Because there is what we call, though scientists develop a drug called anti-angiogenesis to cut the blood supply to cancer cells. But then there is what we call cancer stem cell. The cancer stem cell is like the root of the cancer. Even when they try the angiogenesis process, the scientists marvel why the cancer reoccurred later. It simply means that the cancer stem cell can thrive on low oxygen. So cutting the blood supply causes the cancer stem cell even to thrive better. And cancer stem cells don't have a lifespan. This thing is like the devil, I tell you. That's how it is. You know, I believe that in fighting cancer is not just treatment, but we got to pray it out of our system and live a life that is holy unto the Almighty God. So let me just try to wrap it up by saying this to you. One that is the president and also medical director of the Anti-Angiogenesis or the Angiogenesis Foundation called Dr. William Lee. I like some of his stuff or most of it. And he says that because Dr. Lee now, with this anti-angiogenesis treatment, realized it's working. And they were the one, he's the founder, he's the president of the foundation. And then now it's turned to food as remedies to fight cancer. And he said you could beat, the question was asked, can we beat cancer? I said, you bet we can. In fact, he said we can do better than that by making what? Wise food choices, living a healthy lifestyle. We can keep the cancerous cells that we all have in our bodies from ever becoming a deadly disease called cancer. And he also says that 90 to 95% of all cancers are environmental, meaning they are outside of genetic. Out of this environmental cancers, 30 to 45% are the result of diet. Do you hear that? They're catching up with the spirit of prophecy. In relation to that, Dr. Lee asked not what you could take away from the diet, but what can be added that would beat back the blood vessels that feed cancer cells. In addition, what he's saying that There are food that appear to have a synergistic impact on tumors, working together to starve cancer cells, combining those foods together. And he says sometimes certain foods are more potent than others while research continue at full speed. An ongoing list of beneficial food have been compiled. And since I don't have the time today to present it to you, foods and herbs that have been well studied in fighting cancer. God has blessed me with knowledge, not what I learned in the school, but what he taught me with an experience. And I share this experience with my colleagues who have been in the work way longer than I am. But because of the experience of me having, God sets you up sometimes. From day number one, my first into gospel medical mission, my first work, or my first guess was a final stage cancer. And it has been so since then. I have seen the worst of the worst, I think, you know, and I have smelled it, seen it, touched it. And since I could tell you, it's not cancer, it's not a nice disease for anybody. No, it's not. So these are some of the foods that, make the market your supermarket or your backyard garden. And the spirit of prophecy says, fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables, they are found to be found all the elements that we need. If we go back to the Garden of Eden, we let our plate, the food, what we eat, drink, smell, let our food be our medicines. Increase your fruits and vegetables, your grains, your nuts, the natural things. Cut back on the animal product. Discard them completely. Drink plenty of water. This would make a huge difference in our life daily. And these are just some of the ways, simple way that you could just design a place. And she said, these are the true remedies. You want to know the true remedies? These are the pure air, sunlight, be temperance in what you do, rest, don't overwork, exercise, drink plenty of water, a proper diet, go to the Garden of Eden, and to overcome stress is trust in divine power. These are the true remedies that God has given us. Now, quickly, let me just bypass because I'll show you. I have, and I forget to hide those slides. Sometimes I do show it, but without permission, I would choose not to. But since I didn't hide it, I didn't have time, I'll pass it fast just to show you. So don't look now if you're a very sensitive person. That's just some of the cases that I had permission to show my students, so we could understand and those interested parts. So those who sensitive stomach, don't look at it. But so here goes, and I'll tell you when to watch. Quickly, is a cancer, a young lady, a lady 52 years old, just came from the hospital about a few minutes after doing chemo. They had to stop the chemo. It's cancer in the navel. And this was peeing blood like a pipe. Her blood count was down to 5. They had given her blood transfusion. The physician could not have done. The oncologist could not stop the bleeding. And they sent her, the hospital called me, they tell me they sent a case across, and she was escorted by a senior nurse. It was midday, and she was cold. The sun was scorching hot, about 90 degrees outside. She had a sweater and she was freezing, which means she was dying. And all they asked me, can you stop the bleeding? And since I did, what God had taught me, I went into the cupboard. I took a little packet of 90,000, no, it was 130,000 heat unit cayenne pepper. I gave it to the nurse. I wouldn't do it at our sanitarium because she just come from the hospital. If I give her water and she died, they would say it's us that kill her. So I let the nurse do it when she got to her house. And she said, would it burn? I said, you could only feel one pain at a time. And as they poured the cayenne pepper over it, in just about a few seconds, the bleeding that the hospital could not stop, we stopped the bleeding instantly. It's another young lady. I've never seen so many tumors on her body. She would not let nobody see her but see her. She unclothed herself this to that point so I could see what was going on. Her back has more tumor than the front. The part on the right that you see, her breast literally fell off. The other breast is hard like a rock. Her back has more tumor. Okay, so this one is very graphic. So I'll just skip this one quickly, and I'll just show you this one. Okay, it's some graphic one. And I work with men that they had to cut off the penis, men with the testicle all busted up open. I've seen the worst I could tell you. This lady came, and this is what happened to her breast. I work with her. In that case, I also work with an oncologist. I encourage her to do the surgery and to remove the breast. And then she had to take, well, that was a decision. I don't tell people to take or don't take chemo, but the oncologist recommended to her because this lady, she was in a bad state. She could barely stand. After 3 days working with her, she called me before her surgery. She told me, Bertil, I'm running up the little hill by my place where I could barely walk. So the first thing I do is to enhance the immune system and build up the body. And then, that's it there. The oncologist removed the breast for her, continue working with her. She was on vacation visiting her family. She just stopped by the health store just to, how grateful she was. This lady, a sister in our church, she had cancer. She did this, remove the breast. Um, she did this one, they never did chemo, work with a natural, make lifestyle changes. Um, it's a lot of treatment for the cancer. And then she's now about, I think, 12 years plus. She's cancer free. They can't find the cancer cells in her body. She's a trained gospel medical missionary now and helping people who have cancer and other conditions. So thank you so much. I hope this information was helpful. May God continue to bless you. Let me just close by saying there is hope for you. In spite of how far or what condition that you suffer with, there's hope in Jesus. Just be encouraged to trust the Lord. Just put your faith in Him. He is the great physician. In spite of what you've heard from your physician, every man or the medical mission, every man has a limit, but God is unlimited. He called his friend out of the grave. After 4 days, he brought him back to life. I believe by his grace. If we put our faith in him, God can heal our maladies. But if he chooses not to heal you physically, just make sure that God has promised that everyone who comes to him with faith, he will heal them spiritually. And spiritual healing is what you need, is what will last you for eternity. Father, thank you for your words we pray. May we be encouraged. Somebody on this platform tonight who have been afflicted, who have gotten the news of that C word that brings so much fear. May they have hope in you, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you.
Brother Taylor, at this time we are asking if there are any questions. We'll probably spend 5 minutes and so that you can answer some questions. Sorry, what was that? Time. All right. Could you repeat that, Caroline? If they have any questions.
Is this working? Okay. Yes, we have a question. Thank you so much for your very informative presentation. We have a question here.
If I know
No questions, no questions on my end, but we're really grateful to Brother Taylor for this presentation and the fact that it was also recorded.
That question. Sorry, so sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
I want to find out, Brother Taylor, how can someone reach you if they need your help?
In the chat, how can we get a copy of this recording, please?
There, we will discuss it, and then we will let persons know when the recording is available.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, I will just take the opportunity to say, a heartfelt gratitude for this incredible presentation, Brother Taylor. Your insight and cancer and its impact, combined with the hope and faith, truly resonate with everyone on this group in Zoom, and I know those persons that are at church, and we can
I have a question.
help others on this health journey.
Question.
Someone has a question. Go ahead, Elder Gio.
Okay. Y'all hearing me?
Oh, I was wondering, Elder Taylor, how can we reach you or anyone reach you if they need your help?
Brother Taylor, did you hear that? Someone is asking, how can they meet you, or if they need your help, how can they meet you?
The easiest way to get me is through WhatsApp. You could put my number in the WhatsApp. Okay. Let me just give it. So because some person might be in church is 758 715 8038. Let me just repeat that. It's 758 715 8038. If you have my number, please don't send devotion. Just make it a matter of, because if you send devotion, when you need me, you will not find me. I get hundreds of messages on a day-to-day basis all across every continent on the planet. And if I see that you send devotion twice, I might just ignore the rest of the message. And so I just use it for when you need it. Now, if you message me and you don't get me, don't give up. Keep messaging me until you get my attention. Because sometimes if I don't respond right away, the fact remains that when I look for a message, I just cannot find it. It's lost. So I tell people, you're not bothering me. Just keep messaging me until you get my attention. I'll do the best that I can to respond at the soonest that I'm able to. I hope this answer. Somebody said to share the contact. Going to reach out. Let me just try to put it in the chat.
All right, so with that being said, I'm gonna now move the vote of thanks, and I want to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude for this incredible presentation. Brother Taylor, your insight on cancer and its impact, combined with the hope and faith, truly resonate with everyone on this Zoom call and those that are at church. And we know that this can help us on our health journey. Your ability to connect the topic to our spiritual lives was both enlightening and uplifting. It reminded us of the strength we can draw from our faith in times of adversity. The stories you shared were not only informative but also engaging, and they encourage many of us to consider how we can support others facing similar challenges. Thank you once again for your dedication and passion. We are truly blessed to have you as a part of our community, and we look forward to future opportunities to learn from you. Thank you so much. At this time, I will ask Pastor to pray to close for us. And those of you who want the information, Brother Taylor contact, I can share it with you guys. You can reach out to me. My number is 936-1978. And as he's mentioned before, if you reach out to him and you don't get any answer right away, I can tell you he will get back to you. And his voice messages, and he's so passionate about this. Thank you once again, Brother Taylor. Have a great afternoon.